Sorry we were gone for a little bit, but we are back with episode 107 of Five Drinks or Midnight. You know the show. We bring the questions, guests bring the drinks. We try to wrap up before midnight. Today we are talking to Jacki Schromm, regional brand ambassador for Grey Whale Gin. But before we do, hit the likes, subscribes, do the bells, the whistles. You know what to do. Let's get started. Jacki, thank you so much for joining us. Five drinks or midnight, five drinks, five questions, midnight, whatever comes first. Jacki, thank you so much. How are you doing today?
I am incredibly excited to be here. I do have to say, I did a little bit of research getting ready for this.
Okay.
And just watching some of the incredible leaders of our industry get to talk to you. And now I get to do that. I am just beyond grateful to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, shucks. So, again, we're so happy to have you. Again, everybody is all, again, we're not just about whiskey. It's just two friends sitting at the bar. So today I'm excited. We're going to get into some gin drinks and talk some gin today.
Yeah.
So again, very little that I don't know a lot about gin. So I'm excited for this. So I guess not question one, but question one, what are we drinking?
Believe it or not, we are drinking Grey Whale Gin. So what I wanted to do is just start us off with a neat pour of Grey Whale. I figured it was kind of a great way to introduce us to it. So I'm going to go ahead and cheers my little camera here. Take a little sip. Yeah, so if you said you're not super familiar with gin as a category, so I'm just going to assume maybe you're not as super familiar with Grey Whale. But Grey Whale is an incredible gin. We're actually made in California. And I kind of like to say that Grey Whale is an ode not only to California, but pays incredible homage to the Grey Whale itself. So our whole story is about the California coastline, which also shares the migratory path of the Grey Whale, right? So they actually start all the way down in the Baja Peninsula, and they make their way all the way up to the Arctic. So the botanicals that we actually use to make Grey Whale follow that same path. And in addition to making a wonderful gin, we actually give back 1% of all of our sales actually get donated back to Oceana, and 1% for the planet, which are incredible ocean conservation projects. So it's a really great gin to kind of get behind. It's easy drinking so far, right?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. The botanicals aren't like, again, you think gin and you get like that really heavy botanical. There isn't, it's there, but it's not heavy. There's something.
Yeah. So I think gin can be kind of a scary word for a lot of people, which is one of the reasons I personally love Grey Whale. I think it's a perfect introduction to maybe the vodka drinker that wants to be adventurous, but also it has a lot of interesting aspects to it. So it's still exciting for the gin connoisseur. You kind of just nailed something on the head, and it's not this huge kind of piney Christmas tree in your face kind of taste, right? So all of our botanicals are gonna come from the California coast. A lot of the times when you're drinking gin, specifically in like London Dry style, you're going to be getting the juniper from Germany and Switzerland and Italy. And that berry is really small, and it's packed with a ton of piney flavor. So at Grey Whale Gin, we're actually sourcing our juniper from California, from Big Sur. And it's a larger berry, probably about just under the size of a dime maybe. And instead of that big piney flavor, it's actually packed with a lot of citrus and a lot of floral notes. So that's why kind of on the nose with gray whale, you're not getting that kind of intensity. It's a little bit more of a mellow citrusy note.
Is there like a little, maybe a little nutty to it or
Yeah.
something? Is there
Yeah.
something in
So
that that?
one of my favorite botanicals, honestly, is almonds. So what we're doing with the almonds, we're sourcing them from Capay Valley. And this is going to add a nice, really creamy, beautiful mouthfeel and texture to our gin. And it will give you a little bit of that nuttiness. I will say something really fun that I didn't know is that almonds are actually a pretty popular ingredient for gins. It acts as a binder. I think one of my things when I started with this role, I was like, wait, almonds, isn't like that an allergen? Is that okay? Like, how do we kind of talk about this, right? But because it goes through the distillation process, they did a lot of testings with allergens, and everyone's been peachy keen.
Oh
But
wow!
yeah, there's a ton of big popular gin brands out there that are on the market that we all know and love, that also use us as a binder in their distillation process too. So if there
Oh
is
wow!
anyone that's out there that maybe feels a little worried about that, I mean, I guess one, consult your doctor, but two, if you drink some of those other brands, I can tell you offline, then you'll be good.
Well, we'll save the secrets to question three. So we're not going. We won't.
Oh, fair, fair. So yeah, so we talked about juniper, right? We talked about the almonds that we're using. We're also using hand zested limes down in Temecula, which is a little just south of San Diego for anyone that isn't super up on their California geography. I know I had to do a lot of studying when I joined this brand. And that, of course, is going to add a lot of that beautiful citrusy notes that we're getting on the nose and the palate. Um, in addition to that, one of my absolute favorites is kombu. So we're going all the way up to the Mendocino coast, and we are plucking sea kelp right out of the ocean. And we are adding that into our gin, and it gives us this really subtle salinity, but then also kind of a round umami flavor to the gin as well that I just think is really nice and sets us apart from, I think, a lot of the gins that are on the market right now.
Agreed. I mean, this is absolutely freaking awesome.
Well,
Like
awesome. I'm glad you like
honestly,
it.
no, it's like this is honestly. There's something really. I'm really digging this. This is, yeah. There's something. It's not over. It's just nice. It's really, really nice. Like this is really. Yeah, I'm digging
Good.
this.
I
This
mean,
is
I think that's super
like
telling coming from a, predominantly, maybe whiskey drinker. I think that's really great that you're like, you know what, this is really lovely.
yeah.
I would drink this. I think that's going to say a lot to the fans that are watching.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like this, honestly, it's not overpowering. It's got a great, just like you said, mouthfeel. The almonds, I think that's what I was picking up on.
Yeah.
Like it just, there was something there. Like it's sweet, like marzipan-y kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like it's just
absolutely.
something really, really nice there. And then again, it's got that, the gin tingle
Yeah.
at the end. So
Yeah, so
it's
I think that a little bit of that gin tingle, as you coined it, I might have to use that in future spots. But we also
there you go. You
thank
can have it.
you. But to kind of complement the juniper and get a little bit of that flavor, we're also adding fir tree needles from the Sonoma Valley. So we actually
Oh
work
wow.
with a Christmas tree farm. So in the off season, we take their fir tree needles and we deneedle by hand and use those as part of our distillation process too, which I think is really fun. And like I said, adds a little bit of kind of that little bit of that pininess back in and helps bring some of the juniper out a little bit, helps round everything together.
Are you guys the only gin that is like completely like of place kind of made like do you know like is there not question one but like I mean again you are all strictly
Mhm.
California or an ode to California like you had said, is there any other gins that you know of that are like strictly of place or are you guys one of the
Yeah, I
first?
mean, we're definitely not the only ones, and we're not the first either. There's definitely another big gin brand coming out of, I think it's the Bay Area of California. Um, I'm not shy. It's St. George. They have I don't know if they're particularly all California botanicals, but I do know that they have at least a couple of their SKUs that are, kind of within that realm. But um, to be kind of in the same conversation, I think with them is an honor. So I think that's rad.
Yeah. Well, screw those guys. We're drinking gray whale tonight.
But yeah, and then finally, our last featured botanical that we haven't yet talked about is going to be mint. So you're going to get a lot of that just freshness, a little bit of that cooling effect, and again, that's going to be coming from California as well. But yeah, so those are kind of our 6 main botanicals that make gray whale what it is. And the 6 together are just, phenomenal in our little glasses here. I'm a happy girl when I get to drink gray whale.
I'm gonna need another pour. So
there you go. I'm gonna say, and while you kind of have the bottle, I know I have a bajillion behind me, but I will say one of kind of my favorite things just about our bottle is kind of like our Easter egg. I'll try and get it in here. So if you see in our whale tail logo here, we kind of have that squiggly line with 6 dots. So that squiggly line is actually the California coast. And then each of those 6 dots represent our featured botanicals that go along the coast following the gray whale's migratory path, which I just think is the cutest little thing. So if everyone forgets what we talked about today, it's right here on the bottle.
There you go. So question 1, it's an origin story. Okay. It's always how did you get in the business? It's the same for everybody. But how does someone from Massachusetts end up in Texas representing California Gin Company?
Man. So that's where to begin. I kind of like to say that I too have my own migratory journey. But yeah, so I am actually originally from Florida. Well, actually, that's a lie. I was born in Massachusetts, but I grew up in Florida, right? So when I was 14, I actually started working at a little pizza shop. My mom would work there part-time, and I would go and just kind of like hang out after school, do my homework sort of situation. And I think that's really where my whole career kind of stems from, which is weird to say because I don't think anyone thinks that when you're 14 that like this is going to be what I do. But what happened was we just kind of had one of those really busy nights where this was a really small like mom and pop pizza store, right? Like think like maybe under 1,000 square feet. Like it's not a big spot, right? So there was only like 3 people working. It was this old Italian guy that barely spoke any English, the owner's nephew, then my mom, and then me hanging out in the corner, right? So it was like absolutely slammed one day. It's bonkers. It's chaotic. Everyone's running around acting crazy. And the phone is just like ringing off the hook. And they keep missing it. And so I'm like sitting there like, I feel like I'm supposed to be helpful here. I don't know. I'm 14. But so I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to do this. So like answer the phone. And I'm like, hi, thanks for calling such and such. This is Jackie. And so I take the order, right? I take the order. I remember to get the phone number. I remember to get the address. We're all good. I even remember to take the payment, right? Like I did a good thing. But I just remember being like really proud of myself after. And I was like, okay, like this is kind of fun. I think I'm kind of into like the chaos of all of this. So I think that was kind of like my first bite of hospitality, and kind of my first little like warm soul nugget of like, I think I like this. Eventually I did move back up to Boston, and I kind of did like everything in terms of working in different pockets of restaurants and bars throughout Boston. Like I did the corporate thing. I worked in a sports bar that was attached to Fenway Park, which was a really fun time. That was like a high volume, all the Budweiser and like vodka sodas. I eventually like found my way into like bartending at clubs. At one point, I was living on the island of Nantucket, working at like this gorgeous wine restaurant where people would park their like multi-billion-dollar yachts. That was a weird but really fun time of my life. But then I finally found my way into like the world of cocktails. I was When I was 26, I started bartending at a craft cocktail bar. And I think I definitely fibbed on my resume a little bit about how much I knew. I was like, I know how to make a mojito. I know that I don't shake an old fashioned. But I learned a lot there, like a lot there.
Okay.
And I really fell in love with cocktails, with spirits, and really kind of just like found my pocket. I ended up finding my community working at that bar, and really falling in love with what the food and beverage industry can do. But you did ask, how did I get to Houston? So my now fiance then was, like just my boyfriend. He ended up getting a promotion, and that promotion was going to relocate him to Texas. So, he had to have the awkward conversation of like, do you want to move with me? And I was like, sure, why not? Why not? That could be fun. So we've actually been in Texas, in Houston, for about 5 years now, and I truly, truly love it. I got to work at some incredible bar programs down here, and then eventually found my way onto the brand side, getting to work for Gray Whale. Yeah, it's a lot.
Awesome. That's freaking awesome. Because too, you went to, so like, do you think that moment at 14 when you answered the phone, do you think, because again, you went to school for hospitality,
yeah,
correct? So like, do you think like that was like the point, like the lighting point where it took you off to that path?
I kind of do, because I mean, even throughout high school, I would work part-time at I worked at a Chili's when I was in high school. I was just like, just a hostess, or I would like do like to-go stuff. But I just feel like even if I didn't think I wanted to be in food and beverage, it was just kind of always there. And I kept finding myself going back to it, even at a young age, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I think that there was just something that sparked inside of me on that first little shift, I guess, if we can even call it a shift. I don't think it was. That just like really stuck through me and has really kept me passionate about what I get to do day in and day out, which is pretty cool, I have to say.
That's freaking awesome. And our last follow-up question, do you remember the pizza order?
Okay, well, I was 14. I'm 33 now. I don't even think I have enough fingers and toes to count that. I don't remember the order. I wish I did. Honestly, it was probably like something silly, just like a cheese pizza.
Okay. Question 2, drink 2. What are we drinking?
Okay, so next up we have, get this in here, our Oceanside cocktail. So the Oceanside is it's one of our signature cocktails that kind of, as a brand and as brand ambassadors, that we like to kind of talk about, talk to our like sales reps, kind of get it popular, right? We want to be thought of as Gray Whale Gin when it comes to this cocktail. So the Oceanside is going to, of course, have Gray Whale Gin. It has a little bit of lime juice, some fresh mint, and then it has a salted simple syrup. And then we top it off with soda water. So the idea of this cocktail is to pretty much transport you to the ocean, right? Just like in the name, the Oceanside. And what I really love about this is it features a few of our botanicals that we actually use to make our gin, right? We talked about that a little bit ago. So of course we're using fresh mint to add a little bit of that, beautiful herbal freshness. The lime, just the citrusy kind of pop. And then the salted simple, right? So this is the easiest thing, by the way. I feel like it sounds like it could be intense.
Fucking amazing. Like, honestly, like, and again, this cocktail is just, so fucking
Good.
good.
Yeah. So,
Honestly, like
I
this.
mean, so this is like a cocktail that we want like every type of bar to be able to recreate, right? So when we were creating this cocktail, we didn't want a fancy syrup that people were going to have to buy extra ingredients for, or, maybe it was like a limited thing that only certain markets could. But I mean, what are three things that we all have in our pantry? We have water, we have sugar, and we definitely have
Yeah.
salt, right? So like for this, I think I made like a 1 cup batch. So it's just 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water, and a teaspoon of salt. Like super easy peasy. Stir it up and you're good to go, right? But it gives the cocktail like this really beautiful pop. It makes everything else around it shine. And it's just such a delightful cocktail. Like I haven't even had a sip yet.
It, it is honestly like,
So,
and I will tell you, I fucked up the syrup the first time because I read it as 1 cup, 1 cup, 1 cup. So I was like, holy crap, is this
yeah.
salty? But then I was like, oh shit. But then I was like, I did it right, and then I was like, I kind of missed more of the
There you
salt, so I
go.
was
Well,
like, I had to, yeah.
to
But
each
no,
their own, right? If you need more salt,
yeah.
throw some more salt in there.
But this is just Oceanside in a glass. This is, I mean, this is so freaking
Yeah,
delicious.
yeah.
This
I mean,
is
I think what we
amazing.
really wanted to do, like I said, is transport you back to the coast. The whole idea of how gray whale even became to be was when our co-founders Jan and Marsh Makhtari, they were actually on a camping trip along the California coast, and they ended up stopping in Big Sur at a spot called McWay Falls. It's this gorgeous 80-foot waterfall with like stunning sights, right? So they are sitting cliffside overlooking this beautiful scene, and that's actually where they spot a gray whale and their calf on their
Oh,
journey,
nice.
right? So like the inspiration that they got from this moment was unmatched. So they started having this really wonderful conversation about, you know, leaving a legacy behind. We have two beautiful girls, leaving a legacy behind for them. How do we make the world like a little bit better of a place? Like, those deep conversations that you kind of have when you're on vacation, and it's kind of like an aha moment. So this scene for them is where Grey Whale came to be, right? And this cocktail is kind of supposed to transport you to that moment, to where Grey Whale became what it is today.
I love, like, again, doing a little bit of the research, like, again, the brand being not also a place, but also a purpose. Like, I think that, leaving the legacy
Yeah.
behind, telling that true story. It wasn't just be like, oh, we're bored and we want to retire, we're going to do
Right.
something. It's all about like creating that legacy, and then also doing, because again, you guys also are very much involved in two major
Exactly.
charities. For every bottle that's purchased, money goes towards it's the Oceana and the 1%
Yes.
of the planet
Yes,
charity,
exactly.
correct?
Yeah,
Yep. So
exactly. And I think that is really important, and a really good note to make is this isn't just a board project or like a retiree project, right?
right,
Like
right.
this is a passion. What I really connect with and what I think is adorable is Jan and Marsh actually met at a bar, uh, which I think is really cute. But like they're both foodies. They've both been gin lovers for a really long time. So I think being able to find something that they're really passionate about and that they really love, and then be able to do some good and bring good people together and drink something good, I think was a really important moment for them. And being able to put that all into Grey Whale Gin was a super, super cool thing that they were able to produce. And I'm really happy they did, because I love drinking it personally. Not just because I
Yeah, no.
work for them.
All right. So, question two. You kind of skimmed over a little bit in your origin story of how much of a badass bartender you actually are. So, what made you want to jump from being behind the bar to being an ambassador,
Yeah.
like going to an
Was
ambassadorship.
honestly like
So
the events
right.
that I would attend, and then I would get to see other brand ambassadors put on when I was behind the bar. There was just something really cool that I loved about people being able to bring a brand to life in the form of an event. Um, and truthfully, when I did go to school, because you mentioned earlier, I did go to college for hospitality management and a business degree. But a second,
Don't fail them. I don't know what your high, or college mascot was. I just know it was like I was like go
right,
witches or
yes,
whatever. Like I
okay.
don't know.
So I did go to Salem State University in Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Our mascot was a Viking. Which I think is a really missed
Okay.
opportunity. It should have been a witch. But I do always make the
Yeah.
joke of I went to Salem University of witchcraft and wizardry.
Yeah.
With a minor in hospitality.
There you go.
I mean, cocktails kind of are like potions, right? It's not far off.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so I did go to school for hospitality management, and one of those like second aha moments for me in my career was I worked at the Hard Rock Cafe in Boston, and one day I was asked to work a wedding. And it was one of those moments where I was like, this is still part of food and beverage. Like I can put this whole incredible event together and like literally change someone's life and give them an everlasting memory. And that's still kind of within the sector that I'm already passionate about, right? So I think that was my second moment, right? And that's what I was like, that's what I'm going to go to school for. That's what I want to do with my life. So when it came to thinking about maybe do I want to be a brand ambassador, that was the first thing that really attracted me was the event side. The second was being able to share my knowledge and my passion with people in my community. I think that is a huge one. So when I was bartending in Houston, I was bartending at Anvil Bar and Refuge, and I was also working part-time for another whiskey brand. So at one point, I was finding that the joy that I was getting throughout the day and like the little bits of like what I felt were really rewarding were coming from that other brand job. And it was because I was able to like make memories for people. I was able to educate, and it just felt really good. And that's when I was like, you know what? Like, as much as I love bartending, because I do, I definitely like miss shaking tins, but I really, really loved the ability to share with a lot of people. So that was the moment where I was like, you know what? I want to do this full time. And it kind of just so happened that the current role that I am in now was looking for someone in Texas. And, you know, I put my hat in the ring and look at us now.
Question 3, drink 3. What are we drinking?
Okay, so next up I
so
have
excited.
for you, I'm going to very carefully pull this up so I don't spill it on myself. But we're doing a Gray Whale Gin Martini. I am an olive and a twist girl, personally. Let me take a little sip of this real quick.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I've been waiting for this all day.
Yeah.
So I love a martini. I love a gin martini. So when I realized we were doing this and I had to pick 5 cocktails, I knew a martini had to make the list. I also just think that a martini is the perfect way to actually be able to taste a gin in a cocktail and not, you know, just by itself. I think that it either sings or it doesn't. So I think this is a perfect way for us to drink Gray Whale together. Yeah, so I kind of mentioned a little bit before that Gray Whale is a London Dry style gin. And what that really means is there's no added glycerin or sugar added to our gin. It literally is what it is. So Gray Whale, it starts off as a neutral grain spirit. We use a corn-based spirit that's distilled 6 times. And then finally, on the 7th time is when we add all of our botanicals, which we distill in a copper pot still. And we do something that I find really cool and interesting, not necessarily unique just to Gray Whale, but certainly a favorite distillation process of mine. And we use something called a gin basket. So some of our harder botanicals will go right into the still, like our juniper and our kombu and our almonds. But then those softer botanicals, like our mint and our lime zest and our fir tree needles, they're going to go into something called a gin basket, which, if you're not familiar out there, is, think of it as kind of like a giant tea bag that you hang at the top of your still. So as your gin starts to heat up and the vapors rise, they rise through that gin basket and basically infuse even more. And then obviously the process continues and the vapors cool and all that fun stuff. But that was just always something that I really enjoyed about Gray Whale, that I found to be a little bit different and a really, really fun way to be able to make our gin that I wanted to share with you. And I think that you can taste it that way in this martini, right? There's a lot of
I agree.
flavors, but some of them are a little bit more delicate than the others. And then pairing with the vermouth is just delicious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That mint almost sings with that in the
Yeah.
martini. Like it is honestly like this is just Martini Mondays.
Here
Here
we
we
go.
come. Like, oh
Yes.
my God.
Yeah, I love a martini. I do think that my love of martinis grew when I moved to Houston. I mentioned earlier that I worked at Anvil. Before that, I worked at a bar called Better Luck Tomorrow. They're both owned by Bobby Hugel, and that man loves his martinis. So I was really kind of like encompassed all around me of the art of the martini. So I felt like that was a cute little homage to be able to bring my roots into this conversation too.
No, that's freaking awesome. That's awesome. Uh, which again, your roots kind of lead into the perfect for question three. And since we're now 3 drinks in, and we haven't been holding back. We usually kind of like call this our talking shit segment.
Oh,
so
gosh,
it's a little,
nervous.
again. Oh no, it's good. It's good. Doing our social stalking, research, we found an article that the Globe had written about you and how you were over Tinder dates and how the weirdest shit that you see during a shift with a Tinder date. So, question 3. What is, again, non-sexual, because again, we've seen some weird shit before. But yeah, non-sexual. What is one of the weirdest things you've seen? Not necessarily during it could be a Tinder date, but also just during a shift.
Yeah, wow, man, you really did your research.
We did. We stalked the shit out of it.
I think I like totally forgot that I even did that. You just unlocked like a core memory that I forgot existed. Wow.
PTSD.
Good job.
She's like, the interview's over. The trauma.
Wow. Okay, so what is kind of funny, because I think I'm kind of having like a full circle moment now. I believe that was like the first real interview that I ever did. And I remember this was just a phone call interview. And I remember being so nervous and just like pacing back and forth in my kitchen, like answering these questions, being like, I hope this is okay. Like, I don't even know what I'm saying. I think I might have blacked out a little bit. But wow, this is a really kind of cool moment, because so yeah, okay, weirdest moment. I will say I do kind of have a story that will pop into my head kind of fairly often. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I have like memories that will just like pop into my head while like I'm at a red light, or I don't know, I grab for something at the grocery store and I'm just like, why am I thinking about that right now? That's so weird. So
Or a weird smell, like all of a sudden, like it's like burnt
yeah,
tires, and like you think about,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
there's
exactly.
something
So
that, right.
this is one of those kind of stories where it'll just pop in my mind, and I don't really know why, but I'm always kind of curious of like a where are they now sort of situation. But I was working at Lion's Tail, which was a bar in Boston. It's no longer open, but it was kind of the first cocktail bar that I got to cut my teeth at. But I was the bar manager there, and there was one shift that I was behind the bar, and this guy comes in, sits at the bar, kind of has that nervous energy that most first dates, probably a Tinder date has. It's a lot of shifting
Yeah.
in the seat, kind of like quickly looking at the door, checking his phone to see if it's the right person, sort of like situation, right? And I remember like, asking if he wants anything to drink. He said no, he was waiting for someone. So it's like tick, tick, definitely a Tinder date. So yeah, right. So she finally comes in, and they have this like awkward, are you, am I, do we shake hands, do we hug, what do we do? And so they finally sit down. I like go over, explain the menu. When I was at Lion's Tail, it was a pretty intense cocktail menu. We had like 30 or 40 cocktails on the menu. Most of them were original. The other were like very esoteric classic cocktails that no one really knew. So it was usually a lot of having to guide people. So I kind of let them be, and I come back over, and I don't super remember what he ordered, but I remembered that she ordered a Ramos gin fizz. And if
Shit.
anyone
Okay.
is watching and is unfamiliar what that cocktail is, it is it's gin, it's egg white, it's cream, it's citrus, it's sugar, and you have to shake it for literally like 12 minutes. It's, depending on how busy you are, can be a bartender's worst nightmare. But
Yeah.
as like the proper bartender that I was like, yeah, of course, absolutely, I would love to. It'd be my honor.
Thanks.
I mean, maybe I was like cursing under my breath. I don't remember, but so I this is one of those cocktails that like that sticks in your brain when you have to make them. And at this bar, we didn't make them very often, so I definitely remembered her. But I remember the date not lasting very long. I'm not even sure that they finished their cocktails. So they leave, and I also noticed, I remember watching them go into separate directions. Maybe about 10 minutes later, the guy comes back. So I'm like, oh, he must have forgot something. Nope, he's waiting on another date.
Oh, no.
So, but wait, the story's not over. Okay, so his new date comes, they sit down, they're having, having a drink, having a blast, and they're about like halfway through their new round of cocktails, and guess who walks in with a new guy?
No.
Yes, the same girl,
They
the
came back.
Ramos Gin Fizz girl. She comes in, and she's in tow with like another dude, but respect. So she comes in, and she's seated on the other side of the bar, and at Lion's Tail, the bar was kind of a fun shape. It was kind of like an S shape, so you can see everyone that's sitting at the bar regardless of where you're sitting. And these two are just making eye contact the entire time, and it's like, it's so awkward. It is so awkward. So eventually, the two like get up. I don't know if this was planned, but they get up over like towards the bathroom, and I can kind of like see them conversing, and the energy feels like embarrassed, but like kind of flirty. I don't know. It was a vibe. So I go back to doing whatever I was doing, and I think within like 10 minutes, they both close out. Their respective dates leave, and then these two leave together.
It's a Hallmark movie.
Honestly. But I was just like, what happened? Because when you guys had your first cocktail, like, it did not seem to go well. And then what? You were like,
yeah,
game recognizes game. Like, this is now my person. Right. But so this couple pops in my head from time to time, and I'm just like, where are they now? Do they have a beautiful relationship? Are they married with kids?
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, if you're watching, I need to know what's up.
Please, please, we
I
want
want
to
to
know.
know.
Inquiry minds want to know what
Right?
happened.
Yeah. I mean,
Did he kill him or did he kill her? Like,
I don't
what
know.
happened? Like, yeah, we want to know.
I
Yeah.
wish I knew all the answers to the rest of the story. I don't remember them ever coming
Yeah.
in again. I mean, maybe they just avoided me at all costs after that. I
Maybe. I mean, again,
don't know.
I can't believe they both
That's
came
what I'm
back. Like,
thinking.
again, like, it's like,
Wow. I mean,
yeah.
you know what? I'll take it as this. I'm flattered that you came back to our bar. Clearly you enjoyed the ambiance, the cocktails, you know.
Right. The
Kudos
drinks
to
were
us.
good.
We did
Yeah.
something right. I don't know. But yeah, weird. That's a weird one.
Question 4, drink 4. We talked some shit. Now we're going to part some wisdom. So, what are we drinking
Okay,
first?
so next up we have our South Side with Grey Whale Gin. So I feel like this is what we got right here. Ooh, with that light, with that sunlight, it's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
So this is a pretty easy build. It's going to be Grey Whale Gin, 1 part lime juice, 3/4 part simple syrup, and a whole lot of mint. I feel like a lot of bartenders, brand ambassadors will have like their go-to cocktail when maybe not when they're just like testing someone, but like a panic order, if you will. The South Side is my panic order. Um, so when I go somewhere, this is the cocktail that I want because it has everything in it that like I love. Obviously, it has our gin, which I love dearly, but it's got a little bit of that mint for like that cooling freshness. It's got that pop of lime that kind of like wakes me up. It's nice and tart, and it's a perfect balance with sweetness too. So it's just one of those cocktails that like whether it's hot outside, it's cold outside, whatever it is, good day, bad day, this is the cocktail that I want to be drinking. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Now I'm right there with you. Like, this is just, oh.
Mm. Yeah, it's just so fresh. It just puts me in good mood.
Oh. All right. So, well, question 4. Again, we talked a little bit about it, and I'm gonna use your same pun that you used on us. But if you were going to give advice for someone who wanted to follow in your migratory path, what advice would you give
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
person?
Well, this is not a question that I'm unfamiliar with. In fact, it's a pretty common question, especially when I meet a bartender for the first time. This is generally kind of a question of like how did you even get into this, right? How might I get into it one day if I was interested in that? Even my close friends who are bartenders and are maybe starting to feel like they want to move into the brand side of the world. So it's a pretty popular conversation that I have. But I think I always start off with asking this question: what are you passionate about? Because that is going to be your biggest strength. And let's be honest, every job comes with like its pros and cons, right? And I think often the brand ambassador role can be really glamorized. And so you really do need to feel passionate about what you're selling or what you're representing. Um, for me personally, it was a lot about what Grey Whale stood for that drew me to it, right? In my regular life, in my background, I've tried to give back to the community. I've tried to make sustainable, eco-friendly choices. So these are some things for me that like Grey Whale really stood out for me. It's based, with ocean life in mind, right? Like I can recall back to when I was a kid, and if I had a really bad day, I would always go to the ocean, right? And I would sit on the beach and just like look out into the abyss and realize how small I was and how little whatever that problem really was, right? So there's a lot about what this brand represents that also represented me. So even on those bad work days, I still love what I do, right? So that's always my first thing is like, what are you passionate about? Whether it's a specific spirit category, or maybe it's a specific brand, or maybe it's a whole company's portfolio that like you're really attached to. I think that once you figure that bit out, a lot of things can fall into place. And then I would say that like get involved as much as you can, especially if there's bartenders listening, right? Like go to that USBG meeting and go rub elbows with that brand ambassador or that distiller that came all the way from Mexico or wherever, right? And go ask them questions, get involved. Tag us in your Instagram posts, like, because like networking is so big, especially in this industry, right? Like, it sounds so cliche to be like, it's all about who you know, but like, it kind of is all about who you know. So I think exactly. like a good example literally is how I got here in this role. So I went to Camp Runamuck in 2018. It was my first year like ever going, and I was a part of Redemption Whiskey's cabin, who you were able to interview, Alan, our master blender. So I was in their cabin, and it was the first time that I had ever sponsored a cabin before, which was like a really cool moment. And camp was wonderful. I loved it, like forever a squirrel. But I made a really good impression with the brand ambassadors who represented at the time. I kept in touch with them. A little later down the road after camp, they asked me to work a tails party for them. I did. And if it wasn't for that relationship that I built, I don't think that I would have this job, because when this role opened in Texas, that same brand ambassador, who is now my boss, reached out to me and was like, hey, we're hiring. I think that you might be really good at this role. How are you feeling? And I was like, weird. I just had an epiphany like last week that I want to do this full time. So this is great. So it's like, awesome. I put myself out there. Like I applied to Camp Runamuck. I made the most of it that I wanted out of it. I built really important relationships, and now I'm able to work for a brand that I really love because of that, right? So it's a little bit of putting myself out there. It's a lot about what I'm passionate about. And I think the last thing I would say is like, just be kind, I think oftentimes when people are looking for someone to be in these brand roles, one of like the follow-up questions that I get, if it's like, hey, my company's hiring, do you know anyone, that like is loved and respected in the community, that has done events with you, that's done this, done that, right? So it seems really simple, I think, this advice, but if you're passionate and you're putting yourself out there and you're kind, like, you will go very far. So that's my 2 cents.
All right. Question 5, drink 5. What are we drinking?
So this is one of my favorite lesser known cocktails. It is called a Gabi de Lis. Pull it up here for you. So it's actually just 3 ingredients. This is an old cocktail from one of Charles Baker's books. Think like pre-Prohibition. Gabi de Lis was an old French singer and dancer. Though I guess at the time she was young. But this cocktail is inspired, I guess, by her. But it's a gin-based cocktail with just orgeat and a little bit of absinthe. This was one of the cocktails that I learned when I was working at Anvil. I was studying for the top 100 classic cocktail list. For anyone that doesn't know, Anvil has one of the most intense training programs that I have ever had the pleasure of being a part of. When I started working there, I thought that I was a really great bartender that knew so much. I was very humbled by them, which is a great thing. But so the Gabi de Lis was one of those cocktails that really stood out to me and has like stuck with me. So one of the reasons that it stood out to me is because it's only 3 ingredients and it's very simple. I think for the recipe that we made, it's 2 parts gray whale gin, half a part of orgeat, and then just a bar spoon of absinthe. So when you think about it, it sounds really simple, really easy. Like maybe the flavors go together, maybe they don't. And that was one of those situations for me. Like I remember shadowing one of the lead bartenders at the time, and watching him build this drink. And I was like, he was building it in a shaker tin. So I was like, where's the citrus? You must be forgetting something. Here's me who thinks I know everything. And he was like, think of this as the exception, not the rule, right? So this is a shaken cocktail, even though there's no citrus, there's no cream or dairy. But what comes out of it is just a phenomenal drink. It's well balanced, it's creamy, it's nutty. We're bringing that almond that we use in gray whale back up to life, right? And even though there is no like additional sugar or cream, it's a very creamy feeling cocktail. Did a little bit of grated nutmeg too to kind of just bring out that spice. But this cocktail stood out to me, especially with gray whale, because it like brought me back to a moment in childhood. So my family is not Italian, but when you look at what we eat, you might as well think that we are. But so going back to Christmas, my grandmother would always go up to the North End in Boston, which is basically like Little Italy. And she would go to like a local bakery shop, and she would pick up these cookies called pizzellis. And they're basically like waffle crisped cookies that are either flavored with like lemon or anise. And she would always pick up the anise ones. And with the addition of absinthe in this cocktail, the first time I tried it, it just immediately brought me back to being like,
same. Like,
okay, cool, let's do it.
Now that you said that, I'm just like, yes, that is with the nutmeg and the absinthe. Like I'm like, yes, that's I get it.
So it like immediately brought me back to like that moment in childhood, which I think a lot of us, when we kind of go back to what our favorite cocktails are, I think it will transport us back to kind of a favorite moment in time, and that is Christmas Eve with all the family in the corner eating all these cookies, right? So this is just kind of like a special cocktail that, like I said, not a lot of people see or hear about. It's not on a lot of menus, but it should be. So if anyone's watching and they need a new cool cocktail or an old new cocktail on their menu, this is it.
Again, this is perfect for like fall, winter-esque. Like this, honestly, like a rainy day in New York right now. This is fucking perfect.
That's so great.
So, like,
I think it's definitely an all year round cocktail for me, but I bet that this would do really well on those fall and winter menus for sure. And like I said, with the gray whale gin, I think it really shines with like the addition of our almonds being in our recipe anyway, and pulling that forward with the orgeat, and the absinthe just brings everything together, and it's just a fun little cocktail to drink.
Absolutely, perfect. This is, again, it's so good. Like now that you said that, like it's so like just that Italian. So I'm down. Like it's so amazing. All right, so question 5 comes down to the Whiskey Wednesday coin. You can flip it, you can spin it, you can do anything you want. The coin will give us the answer. You do not have to answer, but the coin will give us the answer. So, question 5. So you seem to be involved in a lot of, like, you're in the spirits industry, but a lot of your stuff is more educational, activism, from like Women Crush Wednesdays to like the charities. You even said education to learning, finding what you're passionate about. So question 5, do you feel you're in the wrong business?
All right, let's see what the coin says, which for everyone at home, this is probably one of the coolest coins I've ever seen. When I pulled this out of my mailbox, I was like, this is way heavier than I anticipated. This thing is awesome. Like
We're also bulletproof. So keep that in your breast pocket.
I'm gonna have to start wearing like blazers with pockets now. Girl, I don't know if you know this, but like girl blazers, like we don't have pockets. I don't know what's up with that.
You don't have the inner pocket?
No, there's no pocket here.
Jesus, we need to make an girls
Girls
love
love
pockets.
pockets, you guys.
Come on.
Okay, let's do. We're gonna do
pockets.
a little. I think we're gonna do a little toss. Hopefully, I don't break anything.
There we go.
Okay, we gotta. Where is it? We gotta fuck yeah.
Yes.
So we're answering this. We're doing this. Okay.
Right.
Am I in the wrong business? Okay, let's talk a little bit about my kind of love for, I guess, giving back for the community, right? So,
also, just to clarify, you are not wrong business. You are a true fucking.
I really do.
You are a legendary badass. Like, again, we want everybody to know that you are a legendary badass. Like fucking from speed rack to everything. Like you have kicked major ass.
Yeah.
So, but again, you have paved way for everything that you do is built off of trying to raise everybody else. Bow down.
Thank you. Yes. This is kind of like one of my downfalls is I don't talk about myself enough, I guess, has been a piece of feedback that I've gotten. But so thank you. You kind of made me like tear up just a little bit, and I was like, "Don't cry on camera." So thank you. That was like very, very kind. But no, I do not think that I am in the wrong business whatsoever. But what I do want to say is that I love what this industry can do. And yeah, like again, I think I'm just really blown away by the research that you've done, that you were able to pull up Women Crush Wednesdays. That was a really fun project that I got to do in Boston, where I would invite women through the community to come do a pop-up at our bar. It would be a menu that they fully created, and then we would end up donating 50% of, whatever the bar made that night to the charity of their choice. And I think that just kind of like speaks to what this industry can be, and it is just very special to me. And again, probably a really big reason that brought me to Gray Whale is them wanting to give back, to do better, to build up the community around them. I don't think they talked about this yet, but during the pandemic, Gray Whale actually hired a bunch of bartenders, and they had like virtual bar shifts. And what they would do is they would create a cocktail, kind of talk about themselves, where they worked, and the drink that they made. So earlier this year, we actually just released a cocktail book with all of those recipes. It's called The Shift. And 100% of all of the proceeds that we got from the book were actually donated to a national hospitality fund, which just really warms my heart. I really, really loved that. But yeah, so we were able to release that book earlier this year. And you can find it on our website if anyone's watching and wants to give it a look, at graywell.com, graywellgin.com. I think about this often, about how a lot of what I do does kind of come back to, I guess, like philanthropy or activism. And who knows, maybe one day down the road, there'll be like another shift. But for now, like I am just really grateful that I do have a platform, regardless of how big or small, that I can bring important issues kind of like to life, whether it's through Gray Whale Gin and what we do with Oceana, which we do some really impactful things. Last year, as of December of 2022, the work that Gray Whale Gin did with Oceana, we were able to put a ban on drift gill nets. This is a national ban. So for anyone that doesn't know what a drift gill net is, it's basically a mile deep net that is used for swordfish fishing. But unfortunately, what will happen is turtles, dolphins, whales, and other marine life will get caught in these nettings. They'll sometimes get injured or even worse, expire. And so what Gray Whale did with Oceana was work first on a local level in California to ban this equipment and replace it with more ethical equipment. And then as of, like I said, December of 2022, we were able to do a national ban on this equipment as well, which is really cool, right? So it makes me like really inspired to work for a company that puts real good into the world. And I think also like pushes me to like keep doing good in my community too. So as of right now, I am exactly where I need to be, and I'm so grateful. But yeah, who's to say what the future might hold for little Jacki Schromm and all her good causes?
There we go.
But that was a great question. Honestly, thank you for asking that. Like, it was a nice little soul nugget that felt really good to kind of like hear about. Like, oh yeah, I do some good. Thank you. It's nice.
No, you actually you do a lot of good. Actually, like honestly, like from again education, raising, environmental awareness to like just everything. Like you actually do a lot of good.
Thanks.
So I want to make sure that people like you were very humble. So I want to make sure that we like total everybody at home understands who the fuck we're talking to. So like
Thank you.
So Jacki, that's 5 drinks down. 5 questions answered. Thank you so much for joining us at 5 Drinks for Midnight. Fuck, that was 5 amazing cocktails. Honestly, thank you so much. I tell everybody this. Now that we've drank together, we are family. So if you're ever in my city, let me know. I would love to show you around. I will be in Houston very soon, so I expect, we can tell the fiance we're going out. Like, just like get your party shoes on. Like we are gonna go out. So
heck yeah.
I just want to say cheers to
you. Cheers to you, friend.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, and till we can drink again in person. So
thank
cheers.
you, Tim. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you in Houston.